by 9 p.m. I presume. I try to keep it a little short, not try to keep you too long.
It's not a problem.
Or you are live on Facebook. You are live.
Yes. Uh, Good evening to everyone. Thank you for tuning in for yet another Thursday of the DeBrief Finance and Business Show. Um, my name is Kemar Stuart, and this evening we have two very special guests. So before we introduce our guests, I'd like to just say that Dr. Justin Robinson will not be with us this evening. He's not feeling well, so we want to wish him back to full health as soon as possible. But nevertheless, we have, as I said, two very special guests this evening. I'll start by introducing the lady. She is Miss Dr. Anki Scott Joseph, a UWA lecturer in economics. Welcome, Ms. Scott Joseph, to the DeBrief Finance and Business segment.
Thank you, Kima. Good evening to you, and good evening to your followers on Facebook.
Yes, thank you very much. Last but certainly not least is Mr. Anderson Cherry. Many of you may know him from being a very popular figure. Just using his slogan, he is the number one in the number two business. Yeah. So I want to welcome Mr. Cherry. Thank you for agreeing to be with us this evening.
Thank you, Kumar, and thank you to all your Facebook followers.
Yes.
Happy to be here.
Yes. Thank you very much. Before we start, we just want to share the link with our guests and share the link with some other persons who may want to tune on. So just give us a second. Let us get that link out there, so the respective persons can see the guests as they interact and share this evening. So just one sec. Let's get that going. Also want to thank Mr. Kemar Safri, who is doing our back of the house production this evening. So thank you, Mr. Safri, and thank you to our other DeBrief TV partners, Jermaine Bedford and Simon Allen, the Manny Small as well. Thank you, guys. This evening again is brought to you by the compliments of Stuart and Perkins Caribbean. You'll hear a lot more about that company in the next couple of weeks, I presume. So again, thank you once more for tuning in. And now that the link is out there and have been shared, let's get right into it. So this evening we'll be discussing the Caribbean business environment. As we all know, we can't think in silos as it relates to business and opportunity. In the Caribbean, we are small island states and we depend on each other in many areas, not only business, for the survival of the Caribbean region. So I specifically chose these guests, given the fact that Ms. Scott Joseph, she is not a Barbadian, but she is working in Barbados, and that goes to show our Caribbean unity. And I'm sure Mr. Cherry, a very avid businessman, he does business across the Caribbean as well. So it just shows the opportunity that is out there for our different islanders to cross borders and engage in different transactions, be it business, be it leisure, be it whatever. So today is just just a highlight, as I said, regional business and the opportunities and the issues also. So I really hope that we gain from this discussion this evening. So Miss Scott Joseph, we're going to start with you. We want your perspective and your understanding of what the Caribbean business environment is like, particularly now that we are in a COVID environment. What do you see as the benefits? What do you see as the opportunities? And what do you perceive as the challenges as we go forward to get ourselves out of this COVID conundrum?
Okay, good evening again to your followers, Kima. As we have noted in this pandemic era, it gives us an opportunity to step up in terms of our competitiveness. Given the social distancing approach that we need to take within this pandemic, it simply means that our strategies now has to take charge in terms of ensuring that we can do so from a distance. Hence, we see technology being advanced, and we also see, in addition to technology being advanced, we need to become innovative, find different ways so that we can, for instance, in terms of restaurants, the healthcare services, they are also going digital. So there are quite a bit of opportunities within the Caribbean for us to use technology. But one of the main challenge with technology is not only the training, but the stability, the reliability of, for instance, internet connection, because you could have the best equipment and the connections are weak, etc. So that becomes a challenge. So what we have to do now, Kemar, is to manipulate on education, manipulate the technological advancement approach in order to ensure our businesses are more efficient and effective. So technology and education would help to push us forward.
Well, thank you very much. I know that persons, and I mean, sorry, seeing some Facebook posts coming up saying that flow, and some persons refer to it. Not, I personally not issuing any disparaging remarks, but they call it slow, in the sense that the internet speed is not up to scratch, and as it relates to the standard and deliverability, sorry, of broadband is very weak in the region. Sometimes you're on and the internet is sticking. Sometimes you just can't get messages sent, and it's hampering businesses, particularly that we are in the COVID period, and the delivery of services are moving online. Right now, that is a challenge. The main two service providers of internet in the region are basically Flow and Digicel. So I'm seeing that the Barbados Light and Power, according to news, they are breaking up the so-called monopoly as it relates to the delivery of electricity. So hopefully we see some other players coming into the market as it relates to delivering internet services, as we know seek to move majority of our businesses online, because it is a necessity now. Wi-Fi is a necessity right now, on par with water and on par with other the life necessities to survive. So, Mr. Cherry, you have anything to say to what Mr. Scott Joseph said, and also anything to add from your personal perspective?
No, I just want to agree with her, and I think technology is going to play a big part going forward. And as you rightly say, the data for the other users, they need to really step into the game because technology will play a big part in the future.
So, from your angle, how is the Caribbean business environment? For those who don't know you, tell them a bit about Anderson Cherry, the services you deliver, um, and how has your business environment been in terms of delivering your particular service?
Well, and in our waste management field here in Barbados and construction, other Caribbean countries like St. Lucia, well, there's not a lot of technology can be used in pumping overflowing valves and stuff, but the technology can be used in acquiring customers. And as I say, technology can be a big thing going forward. And there's a lot of opportunities. The world will still continue to go on with COVID or without COVID. We just have to look for the opportunities, and they're there.
Mhm. So you mind giving us a tip? You mind giving us a tip?
But the greatest tip to any entrepreneur is where the people complain is where the opportunities are. And if we listen to the complaints, you will find the opportunities. They're right in front of you.
Yeah. Uh, so, Miss Scott Joseph, could you tell us now from like a financial perspective, what challenges do you see going forward as it relates to the Caribbean business environment? I know many income streams are drying up because the traditional service or traditional economy has taken a hit, especially in tourism, from the COVID. So what challenges do you perceive as it relates to finances, even raising capital? Um, yeah.
There are two major challenges that would impact on financing: the cost of the operation itself and the time it would take businesses to literally provide the service from the time of production to the time of delivery. So because of the cost and time factor, those add to the financing costs. And hence, the aspect of the financing cost, which businesses really relies a lot on, is government incentives. They also rely a lot on profits and revenues. In a time like COVID, relying on government for say incentives, as you would have mentioned in few of your programs back, in terms of the monetary, etc. Government providing liquidity to ensure businesses stay afloat. So the leniency towards government for that incentives aspect to promote the financing side would not be as strong going forward, because the governments have a lot on their plate. So one of the challenges I foresee is that there would be literally a decline in the amount of incentives that government can provide. Now, Kima, if you would allow me, when we look at some of the other challenges, we think about high taxes. And that's one way government tries to raise revenue. So governments may try to increase taxes, and that would help them to raise revenue. So it means that there will be a narrowing of the incentives, that is lower taxes, etc. Over the years, we would have seen the Caribbean changing their corporation tax base, their tax rates, etc. And so governments have really been trying to provide the financing. Henceforth, what it realizes now, what businesses realizes, that they now have to ensure that this cost and time factor is really put into their strategy process. And within COVID, we see, Kima, that a lot of businesses were able to address that. For instance, if you look at the social media, Zoom, that kind of platform, there are a lot of virtual concerts now. If you think about what a businessman would have done when he would have wanted to have a concert, all of that infrastructure that they would need to put in place, everything else, that would cost a lot. Now, in terms of having the social media and the technology, it reduces the level of cost that would go into play. So the pandemic gives us opportunities as well in terms of narrowing the required financing gap that we would see.
Great points. Speaking of, really glad you touched on the area that you touched on in terms of government and government finances. I could clearly see in a situation like this, when in terms of the reduction of the incentives available to government, there are issues such as high debt levels. Still have IMF programs to consider. Still have to consider the limited resources. Also, regardless of you want to admit it or not, we are a small economy, and we still have specific social contracts to the voting public, especially as it relates to delivery of some social services. So things are looking at like healthcare, education, subsidies, transport, maintenance, and the like. And there are some restrictions that were in place before the COVID, and that hampered government's ability to do effective long-term planning, especially due to like political cycles. Luckily for us here in Barbados, we don't have a huge difference as it relates to both political parties and the outlook that they will use as it relates to governance. So there's not really that sporadic change in terms of delivering these specific goods. But so Mr. Cherry is here, so especially in his field, we know that he is able to perform or deliver some services if need be. for the government, especially in the area of sewage. So that would bring into consideration what we call the public-private partnerships and allowing the private sector and the business sector to deliver some government services at a much cheaper cost, at a much more effective cost, also void of political bias, and like I said, the quality and of services and the performance of services coming from the private sector in most instances are way better. This is not blanketing all situations, but they're usually way better um, in terms of quality, cost, everything. So, Mr. Cherry, like I said, what is your take on the benefits of public-private partnerships? Do you foresee public-private partnerships as the way that will come about as it relates to delivering more services in the economy given the COVID?
Yeah, I really do think that is needed. Um, I think the private sector more cater for the customer, which is very important. And if you can have a group that really look after the customer and to provide that service, I believe that it would give you a better, um, a better deliverable to the customer. So and then government will benefit from that. Like recently, um, last year, when we saw this group was delivering a service to the when sanitation didn't have any trucks. We did a fantastic job as the group, and things like that. Government needs to look at.
Do you see it being embedded? Do you see it being embedded as a norm, going forward? Because you're a businessman, so you have to run your business as it relates to cash flow, money coming into the business. So now that money is tight, for most persons, the market and competition becomes stiff now, and particularly governments through the Caribbean. As I say, we got small economies, high debts, and it is hard. So you see it as a norm, especially as it relates to you. Do you see opportunity to expand through the Caribbean, take a business through the Caribbean, even South America, and be able to deliver these sewage services for the respective governments?
Yes, technology can do that, and technology and that is one of the areas that can be looked at for any, um, for instance, sewer company, garbage company. You don't have to be in Barbados, or you don't have to be any. You could be any part of the world and run a company. Um, it's pretty easy. You have GPS to track trucks. You have paying mechanisms in place with credit card, and you can shut down a truck from anywhere. So technology really could run a business from any part of the world pretty easy.
Mhm. Dr. Scott, do you have anything that you want to add to Anderson's point?
Yes, in terms of technology and being able to enter into PPP relationships or partnerships, sorry, then we are talking about um, the levels of risk that we would want to transfer to and from the government, and the levels of return we would want to see in terms of how are we going to pay for those, that is we as in the public or consumers, how are they going to meet those payments? So in terms of the PPPs, I just want us to go back a little bit, because we've seen in the Caribbean that PPPs have not really been in most recent time patronized. Long ago they were patronized, but most recently government has been taking the front seat as it comes to running businesses. And the ideas of PPPs we really have to get back to, because our governments are definitely stressed. Our public purse in terms of the requirement on citizens for taxes are already stressed. So we really need to find more efficient and effective ways to ensure that PPPs are more risk minimizing in terms of our public purse, that is consumers. So we really need to go back to ensure we have these type of programs on board.
Uh, Fair enough. So let's just look at the legal side of the Caribbean business environment. We are under the COVID restrictions right now, and we did experience lockdowns. So what, from your professional background and perspective, what effect did the lockdowns have? Particularly you, Mr. Chai, what effect did the lockdown have on you in terms of businessman, in terms of delivering your services? Did you at any point voice any displeasure as it relates to the legal measures that came out from the lockdowns? And Ms. Scott Joseph, from your academic background, what effect did the lockdowns and the restrictive protocols and what's not, how did they hamper the business environments from your perspectives? Um, you, either of you can take that one or go first.
Well, I'll go first, Kumar. Well, for our company, um, in our group, the construction company took a beating because we couldn't work at all, and then um, the directors took the high road and didn't lay off any person and really continue to pay the staff. So we took a beating with our cash flow. Um, in the garbage business, it would be an essential service. We still had to pick up waste. Um, but then the PPE and stuff, because we didn't know how the virus was reacting and behaving, that was a cost that we had to absorb. Then the hotel industry, um, you have a lot of hotels that have been closed down, so there was a loss of revenue. Then a lot of hotels is not um, earning, so our receivables has increased. So in the garbage business, that was a challenge. In um, the septic business, um, we had similar challenges, but it was a little bit more busy because you had school children home, people home, in apartment in houses, so you had more overflow wells and people sanitizing and washing their hands more. So there was a boom in that area, um, especially in certain government units and stuff. But then people not working again, or people not in government offices, you end up with a high receivable. Um, but we had to rethink, and the opportunities is there, especially as I keep saying, um, in terms of using um, technology to increase, and it's there. But it's a very challenging time right now. So we have to really, we as businessmen have to really look at how we do business.
Thanks, Kima. I do suspect what you're referring to when you're talking about the legal system. You are speaking about contracts businesses have with their employees. Yeah. So in that,
You can take it from that angle as well. But I wanted your perspective also. Since we, as I said, since we are the COVID restrictions are were laws, are laws passed to basically protect us from the outbreak of the virus. How do you? I said, want your perspective on the effects of these different restrictions, and then you can put in your piece from however you see it.
okay. So the lockdown, um, in some countries they would have been full lockdown. In some other countries they would not have been. So for those who have been on the full lockdown, it meant that businesses, obviously by law, they are not required to open. However, that would have affected the employment rate. Governments would have had negotiations in terms of businesses to ensure they, for example, they would have some of their staff go off on vacation to ensure that they don't have a high drop in unemployment. But you would have seen in terms of the tourism industry, it was a difficult thing to do. And when we talk about the legal aspect, we need to look at how the consumers themselves would have been protected and how the employees would have been protected as well. Unfortunately, we would have seen as a result of the pandemic, a lot of things came forward in terms of we do not have, for instance, small claim courts. There are a lot of contracts you would have seen would have to be redone because consumers and producers and the employees themselves, they weren't protected. So when there's a lockdown, you go home, there's no surety that you would have your job on return. So in terms of the legal aspect, I would say I would have seen an advantage in some cases. Let's take, for example, in St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominica, Antigua, those countries which have CBI programs. They have laws, etc., which are in place to ensure due diligence and all of the various processes are done in a particular way. They would have done, for example, put forward contracts and speed up the process to help to close that gap in terms of FDI. So basically, you see that with every drawback, there have been some many opportunities in there. So the legal aspect, yes, we've seen that we now need to consider, for instance, small courts claim. We need to consider labor laws, revisiting the labor laws. We also need to revisit the health laws. So in terms of financing, Kemar would have seen that the government would have relooked some of the, in terms of the central banks, some of their monetary policy, how they would address what is required, etc. So we've seen a total shift in the way things should be done from a legal framework, a legal and regulatory framework.
So do you know of any instances where persons were, or it was like, since you were unable to do delivery of services, where they were like breach of contracts, and were there any businesses or particularly any governments who were liable for compensation for not being able to deliver the services?
Actually, no, I do not know of any specific case. But what it has done though, Kemar, you have clauses now that are in place to ensure that businesses and the governments themselves are protected in the case of any event that are similar. Because without these clauses, it's similar to natural disaster clauses. Because in fact, COVID-19 is a health disaster. So we now would see in terms of the legal and the regulatory framework, we should be seeing some clauses in place to ensure businesses, employees, we are all protected in the event of anything of such would reoccur anytime in the not too far in the future.
Fair point. Anderson, you wanted to make any comments specifically to what Dr. Scott Joseph would have said?
No, I think well said. No.
Well, I mean, she made some very important points, especially as it relates to the legal challenges surrounding the the COVID. We are very much still in the midst of COVID, and persons are still having challenges as it relates to being able to deliver services effectively. But one point that I really wanted to focus on is the availability of foreign exchange and with COVID hampering investment from coming into respective countries, and people who probably want to expand in other countries having their challenges as well. So Addison, you, as I said, being the guru, the business guru among us, can you tell us, have there been any challenges for you, particularly looking at Caribbean businesses, availability of foreign exchange, any other constructs from like a financial perspective, money perspective, that would have hampered your ability to expand into other Caribbean markets?
No, I think what most entrepreneurs is doing, especially your particular size of business, you're looking at a way to bring foreign investment to the countries, so that we can have revenue and foreign exchange here. So most entrepreneurs is doing that. We know that there will be a problem in terms of foreign exchange if we don't be careful, because we are spending and we're not earning. We don't have a, I mean, I think we normally get about 1.2 million tourists a year, and we're not getting that foreign exchange. It could be a problem. It will be a problem if we don't start to earn foreign exchange. And that's why we need to get the tourism industry back up, or foreign investors come in very soon. And that's not only for Barbados, that's for the entire region. Um, how we as Caribbean people are sitting is we have to purchase everything. We're buying our food, vehicles and stuff. So I think the governments in the Caribbean need to reduce. I can't say they need to reduce the importation of vehicles, because at the port is where governments make more money in terms of tax. But we have to really at look at it and how to reduce the expenditure and how to get more income. But I know businessmen right now is really hunting for projects to bring that in, and government going to give us as much, should give us as much incentive to try to get more foreign investors and foreign currency into the islands.
Yeah, well, I know for a fact that the ability to offer those incentives though may not be, so big, so broad, because as rightfully the revenue coming into the government is really not that much, and we are on the IMF program. So, but let's just say, speaking specifically to the hotel industry is built in on top of incentives, respective subsidies, and the ability to import like VAT free. We still enjoy like tax holidays and tax concessions. But the drawback for that is the ability to collect taxation. So when you offer the incentives or what's not, then you then have to turn around and raise taxes from other sources to be able to fill that hole. No,
But you fill the void of the foreign exchange. You have enough US dollars because people are spending, and then the economy is going more. I mean, the jewelry, the water ski people, the jewelry, the hotels. You still you find employment for people, and that's a big thing. If we need to put people, we need to get people working. I mean, so the good outweigh the bad kind of thing.
ma'am, any comments? Anything to me?
Yes, I have two viewpoints on this. As we know, Kima, there are two general ways that governments would use, and we know tax breaks. We know what the history says about tax holidays and tax breaks that governments have been given to firms who wants to come and settle. And the other thing, as I've said, there's really little revenue that government is dealing with right now. So we as businesses, we as educators, we as the businessmen, we definitely would have to start thinking about our own methodologies, our own strategies, and not to become very dependent on two things. First, on tax breaks. Kima, take for instance, in Barbados, they would have seen a reduction in corporation tax from about say 25% to about 5.5%. That's a severe drop in tax collection. How low Kima can governments go? Yeah, how low can governments go? So we as businesses, we really need to think about innovative ways to cut costs, innovative ways to expand our markets. Our markets do not necessarily have to be huge buildings that are set up here in Barbados. Our markets don't have to be defined by infrastructure. We can extend our reach to Dubai. We can extend our reach way beyond our shores. And so we really need to think about this strategy with very minimum government intervention. That's my view on that, Kima. And I just want to add as well, because I hear my colleague spoke about tourism. I have my own view on that. Yes, it brings in a lot of foreign revenue. Yes, we do need a lot of foreign revenue now. And we haven't been seeing much in the recent times. But as Caribbean civilization, as the Caribbean, we definitely, Kima, have to look beyond tourism. We definitely, Kima, have to look beyond those activities which require interpersonal contact, because social distancing measures, they are going to be in place for a long time. So let us rethink, how are we going to wean our culture in such a way, Kemar, that we can extend our borders beyond the Caribbean with little minimum government intervention.
Yeah. I am a big fan of weaning ourselves off of tourism, but traditional our traditional minded policymakers, their line argument or their logic is that there is no industry readily available to us that will provide the benefits that tourism does right now. Any potential industry will take a couple of years to build to that point where it would give us such benefits. But the good thing about tourism is that it has its tentacles across the economy so much that the spill-off benefits, according to them, are way more beneficial to the world economy other than another industry like agriculture. I know for a fact that agriculture was the only industry that grew absent tourism. So if tourism comes back in, I think that agriculture will grow much larger if you could intertwine the two. Also, you made a very important point about expanding your global reach. I know for a fact that the Garda group of companies, they have companies over in Ecuador, they have many other companies across the region, and I sat particularly during the 1994 to 2008 period. I saw Barbados welcome a lot of companies coming in from Trinidad, the massive grouping and taking up residence in Barbados. So I always wonder why Barbados, why a country we have high literacy rates, we have high education rates, we have a pretty good business model, fairly good stable political environment. So I always wonder why we were not one of the lead countries as it relates to the expansion of business through the region. Recently, the Guardian Group would have expanded into Jamaica and been listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. So, as opposed to basically the selling off of Barbadian assets and the selling off of Barbadian companies to other companies, I was thinking that maybe Barbados should follow their footsteps and seek to enter into other markets and buy out some of their companies because I just hear that we benefit from jobs, but the jobs are not enough to provide what's government essential goal, that is to increase GDP, employment, and gain economic growth. Um, we in the Caribbean, I don't think that we see such high rates of growth as before. So I really think that we need to reverse business outlook and the way how government thinks about business. I personally don't think that a $300 million investment into refurbishing hotels in the COVID period was the best use of resources at the time. And I honestly believe that if we at least took 100 million or 150 million out of that and give the quite business persons like Mr. Cherry to allow them to go on some business ventures, potential ventures that could have way more spillover benefits. I think that that would have been a better allocation of resources as opposed to pouring $300 million into the tourist industry right now.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes, Kemar.
Kumar, sorry, I'm sorry, man.
Go ahead. That's fine. Go ahead.
No, 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 you go ahead.
What I wanted to add to that point is the World Bank would have um, published its report on how commodity prices were performing. And what they would have said is that in 2021, in the first quarter of 2021, they would have seen some stabilization in terms of energy prices. And one indicator that is agricultural prices, they would have seen that it rise by at least 14%. Yeah. So we've seen that there are potential in other industries. All right. So that's the point I wanted to make there. In addition to energy prices, we see agriculture prices rising and forecasting to rise even further in 2021.
Yeah. Kemar, in reference of the refurbishing the hotels and stuff, I think that is a way to get people back to work, especially in the vertical buildings. Um, I know government is doing a robust um, road road program, but when we do the vertical buildings, you could put a lot more people to work, and because we have to look at that, we have to look to get people to work. Um, on one building, you hired 50 people. You, I mean, there's maybe 100 families, then the food vendors and the lumber yards and everything. It's very important to do projects like that. So when you put 100 million or 150 million dollars in those areas, it makes a lot of sense to getting a lot more people to work and feeding a lot more families.
I don't disagree with you. But I have a challenge, particularly that we we focus traditionally in Barbados on construction as the main pillar to give a broader set of people jobs, right? But then you can have the argument and say, well, many of us don't work in construction per se, right?
Well, but
And the university,
indirectly, a lot of us do work in construction. Like okay, for my sector business, um, is not construction related, but if you have an overflow tank or you're building a building and the lines want jetting, um, or because of the construction, or a tank that you didn't know that was there need to clean or or take. So there's a lot of off spill business, but getting people to work, a couple of industries in Barbados is like the tourism, agriculture. But let me look at the agriculture. The cost of land and to put it into agriculture in Barbados, and then the cost of labor is so high. That's a dying business. I mean, sugarcane, plantation, food. I mean, in Guyana, you have water, you have more land space. You could produce the same food way more cheaper, and just float it across the water. We can do so much other things with our land if we be a little bit more creative. And we can export talent. We can export talent from Barbados, and I mean, you said Barbados is a lot more educated, so they can go away and be CEOs. I just see Sachi CEOs did well. We're gonna bring home some of that foreign exchange here in Barbados,
mm,
so we can export our skills, export our talent. I mean, and we could use our resources in other countries to do way better. I mean, if we take um, 10 million Barbados dollars and use it in Guyana, and in a land that costs $10 a square foot, sorry, I mean, like, you could lease land by maybe $1,000 an acre, or 10 acres for 1,000 Barbados dollars. You can't even pay the land tax with 1,000 Barbados dollars for the land. We can do way better, with way less in terms of agriculture in other countries. And then the water is a problem. So we have to look at how we're using our water in agriculture and stuff. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have agriculture. Don't get me wrong. It's food security. I got that, but we maybe do a better job with a ferry bringing food to and for, and still have that same security. And then the land that is there, we can put up maybe high-rise buildings or apartments that could that and we talk about tourism and the Caribbean will always be, COVID or not, they will come. It will be less, but it will come. And but when they do come, you just charge a higher price. Believe it or not, and people will pay. You know, people will pay anything. Um, to, like, some people pay anything to go to Vegas to risk $100 to get it to win a million. If you come to Barbados, you have peace and good beaches and stuff to enjoy. And the Caribbean have that. Imagine how old, let me say how old are you, Lucky Bar?
26.
You think that any person will not want to come to Barbados for the next 24 years? So by the time you're gonna be 50, you're gonna still hear people want to come to the Caribbean.
Have the
Maybe
cost,
that's the way. Huh?
have the cost to get here, and the cost of the food and the cost of living remains so high. I honestly don't. I could see a big slowdown. You know.
Correct. Correct. So what happens is now you leave room for others that can afford to come, and then they'll pay a better price. It's just a science story. Um, if if the country can handle 1.2 million tourists a year, right? If we build hotels to get two more million, it can only hold more million. We just have to source that 2 million. How many billions of people in the world? If you look at it from a numbers game and the wealth that's in the world, tourists will come. Tourists will come. Numbers will come. You just have to look at your marketing strategy. That's all.
Kemar, can I add to that discussion, please?
Go ahead. Go
Uh,
ahead.
Go ahead.
yes, I think sometimes we in the Caribbean tend to forget that when we speak about tourism, we are speaking about a wide array of services. For example, education tourism, health tourism, and an important aspect we have in the Caribbean, in Barbados, in Trinidad and Tobago is our culture. Yeah, and we are not saying that we should really get rid of tourism, wipe it out. No, what we are saying is that this is the opportunity to add, add extra services which would help to boost our economy, not necessarily just focusing on the types of tourism we have had in the past, but think about creative ways to add to the industry. Because look at this, with COVID, we need now to build a trust schema of those tourists who were accustomed getting on a plane. We have to build trust. Rebuilding trust is going to take time. Okay. In addition to that, we had many challenges. Take, for example, the ethics of our Caribbean people. Some countries, yes, we're very friendly people, but in terms of the services we provide, in terms of the ethics, what's right and what's wrong, what would we compromise? So we need to think about adding creative aspect to our tourism industry. For instance, as I said, we can think about expanding on our culture and other creative arts within our Caribbean region. Okay, so that can also help to add to tourism instead of we looking at it sun, sand, and beach. No, we have a lot more to offer, and we need to consider our ethics as well.
Well, tourism, Kimar, is not my area of expertise, huh? But I really do still look at the number game and and getting people back here. I think that if we look at the markets, the playing ropes, uh, we will still get them back here to this to enjoy our beach. And all we have to do is continue to work on our people and let our people just treat the tourists good. And we have to look at the crime situation, like what's happening today. We don't want that. So we really have to get people back to work because people are getting desperate. People are getting desperate for money, and we need to get people back to work. We don't want to see, um, you know, these unfortunate situations. We really need to get people back to work so that we don't destroy the tourism going forward.
Well, I understand. We don't need to be, you don't need to be an expert, but your suggestions are very much welcome, and they are important. At least the discussions for persons like myself and Dr. Scott Joseph and the other professionals who may be watching, it gives us areas that we can go into research. So you would have said some things about the tourists coming and we don't think that they will start coming. I worked at the only five diamond hotel this side of the Caribbean, and these persons usually come not necessarily for the cost, but the quality of the product, and they are willing to pay to come here to because Barbados is special in their hearts. But the challenge is, I'm not saying that particularly younger tourists that would ensure the continuity of the sun, sea, and sand model.
Correct.
We attract more of the high end, as you say, the high end persons, but I don't believe that that will stay in place for that much longer because there are other jurisdictions across the world that are way cheaper, way more closer to home, has a better technology penetration, has easier. Because I can give you a plausible example. I had a friend in from England and he wanted money from the bank and he didn't have any. When we went to the bank, they didn't want to give us any money off his card, and he could have only withdrawn to $1,000 a day in
Correct.
spectacular Barbados.
So
So
that's what we say. Technology, Kimar, will help. You need to work on that. But but as you know, you listen to your grandmother. You listen to daddy and mommy and your grandmother. Going forward, the grands to those grandchildren and parents to those older parents that would be old poverty scene, they heard about Barbados. They were coming to Barbados all the time. The families and friends heard about Barbados. They too don't want to experience Barbados. So they're going to have a next generation of that family. And as long as we continue to treat those people good and continue to provide a good service, they will come back. Look at the pandemic in the 18th century and the 60s. The world been through this already, and travel came back. They will continue.
so Dr. Scott, if you have any point to add to that.
I do agree that it will come back, Kima, but when it does return, it should not be business as usual. We should be prepared to be more competitive with our tourism product. If you think about places like Bali, when you visit Bali, the kind of service you would get, as you've said, for a very low cost is top class. And we're gonna compete. We're not competing against our Caribbean counterparts. We are competing with the world. So when it does return, we have to be ready with a more sophisticated product. So we need to really think about how we're gonna do this. That gives me the opportunity now, Kima, to speak about a very important aspect which we take for granted. When you speak to a lot of businessmen and persons who are not into economics, and you speak about, for instance, GDP and indicators, they would say to you, the man on the street doesn't understand that. But for governments would use things like government revenue, GDP growth. Businessmen, those in those sectors need to also understand what are some of the measures they can use to tell what's happening and where should we go. So in this case, we're talking about how can they use, for instance, the data. All of this that's happening right now in COVID-19 gives us a wealth of data for us to use to analyze what strategies can put us at a better position. When I speak about data, I'm not necessarily speaking about quantitative numbers, but I'm also speaking about qualitative facts. So we cannot go forward with the same plan. The same plan will give us the same results. We need to think about creativity. How can we become more creative? So we need to now have, Kima, a shift in our culture, a shift in the way our people are influenced, and a shift in the way how our people think, so that we have a better quality product.
Oh, right. I just wanted to agree with what you say, uh, but there's the social partnership, right? And the chair of the private sector, um, which represents the larger business or one of the largest business bodies. He sits at the table as it relates to liaison with government and what government is intended to do in terms of moving the country forward. I know that all businesses are not registered with the social partnership, but I would like to see the social partnership, or I would not let me say, I would like to see the private sector take a more leading role in educating businesses on the respective indicators that you would have mentioned and bring about a greater economic and financial literacy to business and aiding the government going forward. I don't think governments and the private sector should be working like this, but more like this partnerships hand in hand, because governments are not necessarily in the business of, but to some extent, delivering private business services. The private sector does that. So a greater conversation is needed within that space, because the government is the one who sets the laws within the country, which the businesses must follow. That comes in the form, as you know, a constitution, the respective statutes, regulation, and dealing with the respective government agencies that may oversee how businesses operate, like the KIPO. When it comes to like the larger businesses, like let's say if Mr. Cherry wanted to expand to the Caribbean, he needed a certain level of foreign exchange. He would have had to go into the central bank to apply for use of foreign exchange over a certain amount. And if the money was not there, the transaction simply could not have happened. He would then have to go to the uh, commercial banks or what's not to trade or the foreign exchange to make that transaction occur. So I mean, the education is definitely needed is in the business sector, because when liaising with officials in the regulatory bodies, they're saying that many of the business owners and many of the businessmen are not too au fait with the respective financial outlooks of the country, and they always end up mostly just focusing on the profit oriented policy. But let's not be naive. Businesses are in the business of making profit. But I
Right.
believe in a situation like this where COVID comes up, there needs to be greater social responsibility on behalf of businesses taking a more leading role in solving societal problems, which will still essentially bring you profit, but instead you'll be solving a social ill, so that you as a business benefit in terms of profit, and the people could benefit in terms of solving a problem that could potentially save thousands and thousands and thousands of persons um, money that's very scarce in these times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the things that happened that needed is needed to is when entrepreneurs come up with ideas like that and give it to government. Uh, the how to say the powers that be need to share, not to take that entrepreneur idea or or give more entrepreneurs opportunities. Like let us say government is the platform to give those entrepreneurs the opportunity. They need to give them and not hold them back. Because in Barbados, let's speak about Barbados and a couple of Caribbean countries. You're seeing only a few is getting to partner with government with deals, and that's not right. You need to, and there's a lot more like us that need um, that opportunity as well. And I think that that is one of the things, Kimar, that governments need to look at, and they need to look at that very strong. Um, uh, look among us as a people. How many of us have you ever seen over the last, well, 20 something years of your life that ever get a government contract to a tune of X amount of money, maybe even past a minimum of $5 million? There's not much of them. How many of them had a partnership to do anything with government? None. Not one of them. And I could go back and maybe we can talk. None. We get, we may get a little job to build a building at the lowest price or to do something at the lowest price, but we don't get it, Kimar. So maybe he's talking about partnership. We need to look at that. Maybe talk about government um, helping people, we need to be real and you know, I can be outspoken, you know, I can talk.
Uh, well, just today, I
So if you
saw.
want your so if you want your program, you just know I can start. I'm ready now. You know, let's start.
But this is a safe space. We ask the hard questions, we make those tough statements because that's where change is brought about and alerting people to the issues. Yesterday, I saw a gentleman, a very known popular contractor in Barbados, rolling out some housing programs. Um, if we are honest, he was accused of receiving excessive largesse from government as it relates to contracts, and other persons were believing that the wealth could have been shared. But then there's the argument, and I just say this argument comes from those lackeys who don't know themselves and don't know I don't believe in their brothers and sisters to say that, oh, well, he has the capital to take the risk, and he has the expertise and he like, but he not targeting at him, but persons on that level were not always on that level. They had to be given the opportunity. They had to be somebody had to say, well, let us try him or her, and over time they got the money and they were allowed to buy other equipment to expand the business and the like. So my thing is, other persons could be afforded such an opportunity to get to that level. So I don't buy that particular argument from the lackeys saying that he is the only one. I think that there needs to be greater transparency as it relates to how government issues out the respective contracts. This opens up another conversation, honestly, that I think that people try to run and shirt from because for some reason people feel like they may get victimized or pushed to one side
But
because they are outspoken about these type of issues. But I mean, it is something that we need to speak about because you've seen situations where taxpayers' money just go along down the drain, and sometimes the quality of work is really not that good. So, sir, you want to say something?
no, Kimar, you will get victimized. I mean, especially if you're like me, that your mother left you and your son too long, you will get victimized, brother. It happens, you know, and it's embedded in us, you know. And but banks doesn't sell currency, nor lard, nor butter, nor cheese. Banks sell money. So whatever one of those other guys get, we could get to, as long as one of our brothers or sisters in the banking industry would want to give us. I mean, what is money? Some numbers on a piece of paper, set for the proposal, and you get it. If you have that government support, that's what makes a difference. If government says, "Hey, look, I have a contract, rent a contract here," that is what makes a difference. Why we can't get that written paper? What? Why none of us was able to achieve that? None of us, none. Why? Because our mother left us and they sent too long. No, all of us are the same. We, we got our families to feed too. We want our children to get generational wealth too. Listen, wealth is easy. You know, it's trading. You put out this amount of money, the product sells for that, you get this. So it's very simple. Any we can do it. Any we can do it. And you know what? We know what makes us feel. What the biggest joy? Then they hired us to do the job, to give them the wealth. We need to they need to cut out. That's what we need to do. You understand? The wealth
Yeah,
needs to share. We need to. We got the ideas. We have the ideas. Kimari, look at you are here today at your young age, like me. I get old now. See, again, it's great. A lot is stress, but if I project my life to age 80, with the next 30 years or so, I'll be compost, so I'll be out of here. But we need to empower people like you and others to make a change. You know, where we fail, make a change. So prepare yourself, prepare your children, prepare the rest to educate them and let them be smart. And when I say educate them, teach them, get them and talk to them. speak on the dinner table with them and tell them about how to earn money. And that's what we don't do, how to make money work for us, how to do a deal. We need to talk about it for real. We need to keep it real. You with me? And we as a people, when your friends that when you get 30 and 40 years old and maybe in government or something, bring along some other black brothers with you, please. It's very important.
Mom, you have anything to contribute?
I'm not a political scientist, neither am I a politician. But I would add my 2 cents to say that Caribbean politics will not change anytime soon. But we need to ensure, Kemar, that we educate the next generation to ensure that we have a larger private sector. Because when you have governments in charge of everything, public transport, when you think about it, they basically they run everything. So when you have so much in the government hands, what can you do? What can we do? The public sector is too large. Look at how much the public sector employs. When you go to school, you at the end of your graduation day, you're thinking about I'm gonna take up a job with the government. Most people don't think about becoming entrepreneurs. Okay, so you definitely need to see a shift from having such large part of the economy being run by the government. We need to have more private sector involvement for sure. So it takes us right back to where we started, which your question to me initially is, what were the challenges and what would push us forward? Technology and education. We need to nurture the minds of the next generation to ensure they understand that they too have the ability to be successful businessmen and women.
Correct. And government need to share the work and the when it started to privatize. Basically, we talk about PPP partnership. They need to share it. They need not to keep going in one direction. It needs to be shared. They need to really, really look at it and share it. You understand? Look, as I said, in 2015, I put together a group called the Base Haulers Group, and we were able to continue to collect garbage when there was a crisis. Why that group couldn't continue to be a waste collector? Why? How? No. But we collect the waste and take it to a facility that is privatized. Why couldn't the waste be privatized? We need to relook at how it's being done. Why was not me or another company for having a desal plant too, or a group of us buying a desal plant? Why is only a particular group that's who get these projects? Government needs to really, really look to what is the word? The enfranchise, help me with the word, or as our people.
I also blame our people too, because we have accepted this way of life for a very long time. There is a role for civil societies to step forward and say we need to have conversations about how things ought to be, because as citizens we should have a say. So we should blame ourselves too, because our voice should be sounded louder.
Well, when you I will take from a business point of view, and you probably may have started to hear this all tomorrow morning. Doors may be getting close to my face from tomorrow, but I'm very outspoken. I just say what I gotta say. So if you know the amount of doors that have been closed in my face since I get up and talk, but I love to talk. So I know that God is with me. So but much people doesn't have that faith. A lot of people live in fear, and they're scared to speak out, or scared to come here on TV, tomorrow Facebook or people can pull little snips of what I'm saying, and it can be all over. Some ministers gonna call this one, but it's true. I would say again, they need to share the wealth. They need to help enfranchise Black people, and give us some of the work. Seriously, what will stop? Look at construction. Look at the construction industry. We own the same brand equipment. We all got cat equipment. As a matter of fact, I may got better ones than others. So if they need new cat equipment, I have some. Anyway, so we may got better trucks, better equipment, but we still can't get the jobs. It is amazing. And then we will get hired to do the jobs for others. We need to really, 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 and we say we, but government really need to look at helping more businesses, and because small businesses is who are going to bring the countries out of recession. We can employ a lot more people.
State your point right there. Don't move from that point. Because I want to make a contribution to what you're saying, but I just want to read some comments coming in from the live. We had David Waldron saying, excellent point, Kemar. Thank you, Princess Steph, for tuning in. David Waldron said the marriage between agriculture and tourism is very important. Shanice McConney said that have the expansion of businesses such as Massey and Samakel Guardian through the Caribbean not a win for the Caribbean? Is this not a prime example of true Caribbean business environment? David Waldron is saying that he likes the level of honesty. James Paul is saying technology and education in and of themselves will not do what is required. They do not exist within a vacuum. We are missing the third element. Mr. Paul, I mean, the statement is quite vague. So we'll later to expand on it in the comments if need be. He said again, involvement achieve nothing unless it is guided. It seems we feel that just repeating a cliche often itself will do it for us. It simply will not. We maybe need to get onto a deeper analysis. Mr. Cherry was getting deeper into the analysis and painting the context first as to what the challenges are. But this for me brings up a greater cultural problem that we have. We know that Caribbean economies are predicated on the exploitation of blacks. We were slave lands, and majority of the economies don't. I say that because it was being responsible. Yeah.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah. So my thing is, we still operate on the system where people of a certain skin color may dominate the economic landscape. And and this is not only a Barbados problem, but this is a Caribbean problem, where minority groups usually dominate and have a great say as it relates to the distribution of wealth. I honestly think it comes from the fact that where investment opportunities are available, then you see the rise of what we call lobbyists and persons within the corporate executive. Usually creates relationships with the political class, and that definitely gives the corporates the ability to have decisions made in their favor, as they are the ones who usually fund political parties. So maybe Mr. Cherry may have to start funding a political party or two and see if that may change your favor. There are also issues as we could see though, as it relates to like a large.
Kemar,
Yes, sir.
sorry, I see you got two people in Dora and an iPhone. Are those on the call?
They're just viewing on the live, but I didn't take them up because
Oh,
yeah.
you know who they are though?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Just making sure on the technical side.
All right.
Go
No
ahead.
problem. Thank you. Yeah. You apologize, but yeah, let's moving on. Right. So I was saying that I find, and just going back to the education point now, is that we take education literally to mean just go to school and come up to primary, secondary school, get a nice little degree, and we have people coming and working for some place like Shafet or PwC or one of those places. But there is a minority group in Barbados, particularly now, who's dominating the economic landscape. And if we study the statistics, many of their children do not attend university. But however, they seem to be dominating the transportation. They seem to be dominating the car space, importation of cars, um, and the like. So my thing is, what is really wrong with our people? Our people, we usually join groups like the trade unions and these respective groups. And in my opinion, these groups are not empowering its members into entrepreneurship per se. Um, I honestly believe with a population that is so large and predominantly black, I think I'm just following Mr. Cherry's line here. I think that for black population like Barbados, we continue to be miseducated and taken for fools. I honestly believe that now is the time, given the pandemic. If we look at the unemployment line, I am sure that you're not going to see that many other people from the other ethnic groups lining up for national insurance payouts or care packages or the low welfare checks that the government may give out. They have enough savings that they could survive on, or they have generational wealth that, if need be, they could rely on that to survive through the pandemic. But our people are usually the ones that will have to benefit from the welfare. So like I said, my thing is, I think that we need to go back to our education model. I don't think, and as Mr. Scott Joseph said, Caribbean politics and the delivery of Caribbean politics will not change anytime soon. But if the people in the society change, then the government has to change to suit the people within the country. If not, you will feel and you can get past one term in office. So my my thing is, the internet has opened up great opportunities for persons to educate themselves. Getting a degree and going to university is not the only way out anymore. And I think that we need to start to re-educate ourselves, or we're going to continue to have these issues to the kingdom come.
That's
Kimar, I
true.
totally agree. And I think the school system has failed us somewhat. And I think that we as a people need to really teach our children financial education and what is money, how to, what money really is. Um,
Mm.
98% of the people that win the lottery, probably even in Barbados, they go broke. Why? Because they don't have financial education. We don't let our money work for us. We continue to chase it. And till we to understand that we need to put it out there to earn, to come back to earn for us. So we start looking at the mindset and how to treat money. And, like our, that we be taught for the love of money is the root of all evil. You know, um, there's so many different things that we've been taught and that is embedded in our heads about money and how evil it is and how bad it is. We just need to know how to use it, how to put it to work. Um, we have to really look at it. Um, so let us speak about the credit unions right now. Look how much money is in the credit union, and look at in the credit unions, and look at who has the wealth in the credit unions. So we have among us more than enough money that we can make a difference. Is how we gonna use it. So if any one of us go into the credit union to get a loan, we're gonna be declined. But if we go to get a car, we're gonna get it. We have to really look, relook at what we're doing with wealth. Imagine you go and buy a piece of land. Well, it don't even like using the term land, because if the land is not producing or giving you back anything, it is a very bad investment. And people could cut me on that one, but you have to be very careful of investing in land. You pay to get the land cut, you pay the land tax, and you're hoping that the land goes up in value. You said you bought it for $10 10 years ago, but now it value 20. But in that 10-year span, the land didn't do nothing for you. And we think that we did a very good investment. But if you use that same $10 today, you can buy 10 pieces of that land along the line. But anyway, that's a topic for next time. But we really need to look to see how we making our money work for us. We really need to look to see where the wealth is at the banks now, at the credit unions, and how many of us put our monies at the credit union, and look where the wealth is at. If we could only come together with projects and ideas and to do the right thing, we could really make that money work for us.
I honestly agree. I mean, definitely agree you. But I want to take something into perspective here as well. But I just want to read another comment coming in from James Paul again. He said the minority groups only dominate because we as a society, we want to adopt the easy way out. The third factor is the cultural nuances of our society that influences our behaviors and attitudes. This third factor helps to empower these same minority groups at the expense of the, I guess, saying he's meaning the larger society. He said education, it is not just education, it is the keep saying this third factor thing, but they don't get what it is and that we are ignoring. The educational system is influenced by the society. And he said the caller has it incorrect that the school system has not failed us. It is the other way uh, around. But I gonna have to disagree with him. I'm gonna definitely have to disagree with him there because I went to university and I studied banking and finance. And in speaking to other students from across different faculties, like medicine and health, law, and the like, they don't have an idea what's a stock. They don't have an idea what it's like to speak about investing. And these normal things that I discuss with my peers, they look at me like if I'm speaking a foreign language, if I bring up anything about finances and the like. But these are the persons that will be our lawyers and our doctors and in the future, but they don't understand investment and investing unless they choose to go outside and try to adopt it as a hobby. So I think that we need to broaden the delivery of education service to include a compulsory component of finances and investment and understanding how it needs to work. Within certain religious groups, they sit their people down and every Sunday or every day they go to church. You need to understand the power of money. You need to understand
Correct.
consumer arithmetic, and you need to understand how your money works for you. And like I said, these persons are not who are in the unemployment line right now, right? So yeah, ma'am,
So
you've been all,
Kimar,
I want you to jump in here if you have anything to say.
so Kimar,
But
as you hear, sorry, as you hear when I speak, I'm not the brightest, right? I was lucky to leave school with two certificates, my baptism and birth. But Heritage, I was able to, over the years, be able to hire some of the best lawyers, the best accountants, and everything. And I'm not the brightest. You understand? So I believe that if we really look, I mean, it can work if we really look at what is POB, principal business in school, and oh, in this real world, it's different. But
Yeah, mom, you wanted to get in?
yes, Kima. This 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 debate or this conversation on the importance of education could take us forever because, as you rightly say, it's not necessarily that the system has failed us. It's that we need to relook how the system has been delivering what we need. As as time changes, as situation changes, so too the curriculum should change to adapt to the various aspects that are affecting us. So our education system now has to come in line with what's happening within the economies, within the environment, as globalization, as we call it. So if you take, for instance, if you look at the curriculum, math, English, geography, history, what about entrepreneurship? What about music? What about creative arts? How many schools have gym or sports education embedded in its curriculum? So the idea is we need to look at how time changes, how the environment changes, and ensure that our system also changes to ensure that those aspects are taken into consideration. Um, as you rightly said, Kemar, education is not necessarily sitting in a classroom. For the viewers right now, they're being educated on different aspects of the discussion. A very important tool which we were educated when we were younger was the television. And many would have argued that our Caribbean region became so infiltrated with crime because we see all these different things on television. So television is one of the main players, well, used to be one of the main players for educating us. Now it's social media. No, it's social media. So it is now influencing the mind of our people. No one looks at television no more, Kemar. Everybody's on Facebook and YouTube. So it gives us the opportunity to even think about how can we put these things into our education system. COVID has forced us to use Zoom and other types of technology technological devices to provide education systems. So my point is, Kemar, we need to know the cultural shift has to take place no more than ever. That is adjusting everything around us, our curriculum, our attitudes, our way of doing business, even the way governments do their business, to ensure that the changing times also reflects the change in our strategies, in our policies, and more than anything else, our education system. Our education system. Recognize, Kemar, recognize that you were a politician long ago. Pull you out of the system, nurture you, and train you in that area. Recognize that your son wants to be a cricketer or a musician. Pull him out, nurture him. Don't waste his time. And then he becomes resentful because this is not what he wanted to do. Nurture him very early. Let us nurture our people, have a shift in the culture. We become more empowered. So we have a larger private sector driven by people who love what they do, not people who are forced to do things because they have no other choice. That's my addition.
I definitely agree with you. I don't think that we do succession planning well. And when I say we, I'm again focusing on the larger ethnic group in not only Barbados but the Caribbean. I've noticed that within these respective cultures, these persons identify very talented early and pull you and give you all the respective, as you said, nurturing and education and pointers, network, contacts, and links. So that by the time the age that they are, and just to give you a practical example, I used to go by a nearby shop, um, and the person who served me the goods, for a little 10-year-old, 9-year-old girl working the cash register. Um, if that was over in our side of the world, you would hear man don't come in here, go outside and play a little basketball or run boat or ride boat a bicycle or the like. So that transfer skills for me is not there, and that's where I think that where a lot of our youth now are becoming deviant, because where we want practical skill to learn practical skill, you are turned away. I have my still having my experiences right now as it relates to interacting with persons who are more seasoned in the field, and they get snubbed and pushed aside and told that I need to go and do this and go and do that, and they tell me everything I need to know except what I really need to know. Right. So it takes groups like as I am in a group called the For Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International. It takes groups like that, which brings persons together, like many persons together to provide network opportunity. Not only that, but further into your spiritual development. Um, because I found that the group where majority of persons gathered a couple of years ago in the respective institutions were churches, and I find that a lot of people actually left the church. But you don't find like the Indians leaving the mosque in droves, and you don't find like the whites excluding themselves from like family dinner, retreat life. I think it droves. They stick together and pass on information, tips, skills. Even when it comes to finding out about business opportunities, they are always the ones in the know fast, and we usually find out at the late end, and we are usually on the consumer end as opposed to being on the productive end. So my thing is, I really think that we need better organization, and I think it needs to be better organizational. That we need to be better organized within our organizations and change the tone of the conversation and give people practical experience in areas that do matter. Um, like again, given an example, if I go and I learn the principles of business at CXC or degree level or what's not. I can go and learn the most theory, but I don't get no sort of experience within the business environment to say, well, okay, well, I've managed a little small account of $10 or $15. No, that's just not there. So the transfer of skill for me is where we're lacking, and then it takes a committed person like myself who has to go and harass all of the people in the library at UB to get books to try to learn it on myself. So by the time I have to do all this learning on my own, what would take me 20, 25 years to perfect, these other groups could come and learn it in 5 years and be like years ahead of me and my respective people. And then we always wonder why we get left behind. So that's basically it from my perspective. Anything to add from you guys?
Kima, I glad you brought up that point. I just wanted to highlight an example of Germany. In Germany, they have the model where students don't necessarily, some of depend, they do not necessarily go to school for the entire day, but they are given the opportunity to go into business places half of the day where they would actually apply what they've been learning in school. So that's just a strategy that they have adopted, and that has really helped with the education process. It's not 24 hours, sorry, it's not 8 hours, how many hours they go to school a day, but they also use a part of their day to go into businesses to get some hands-on training.
We're going to touch on our last area. We're going to touch on our last area of conversation, and that is our changing fortunes as it relates to being what we would call the beacon of the Caribbean. We are about to go to the republic status very soon, and we are breaking away from England. I honestly think that that will have an impact on tourists coming in from that side of the world, and it will have some impact as it relates to how fortunate we are. We are always on some type of blacklist for, and especially with the case where one of our ministers were arrested, and it was all over the international news. Some of my business contacts in the UK allowed me to know that that particular case is always a reference point for young students coming up as to what not to do, especially as it relates to business, as it relates to Mommy made the point about ethics, as it relates to ethics, and we don't want to keep that dark cloud over the Caribbean as being a dangerous place or a place where money laundering occur and what they call terrorist financing and all type of unscrupulous behaviors painting us Caribbean people in a bad light. So I wanted your guys' opinion on how can we change the ethics, or not really the ethics, but the perception of um, that these respective persons will be trying to paint the Caribbean in an unethical light, and how I mean like, how we could change that. What suggestions you have? Were you yourself ever in a situation where um, you had to you saw an unethical situation and you had to stand up for yourself, or not only for your own reputation but for the reputation of your business partners and even your country? Like, any of you can take that.
Dr. Joseph, want to go first?
Um, what I can add to that discussion, Kemar, is as it relates, how can we as a country um, stand up against the blacklisting and what we call the name and shame that these countries will put us under. Um, there is one solution to all of this. There is power in unity. There is strength in unity. As a Caribbean region for many years, we have been struggling with trying to have a common agreement as it relates to CSME. And I do believe that with a stronger voice to unity, we are able to stand up firm against the various international organizations and communities, which would literally not necessarily force us, but because of what we would want to get out of them, we'd have to follow through on certain policies and regulations and recommendations because we want to have their support. With a stronger voice to unity, CSME, etc., we would be able to have a better voice. I think that's the best I can say on that topic.
Okay, Mark, I believe that you will always have a bad apple in the whole bunch. Um, you find it in the banking sector. You find it in schools and classrooms. You always had a boy that would felt or slap someone by the ear. And in this case, it's unfortunate that uh, shame has been brought on the whole country by one bad apple, right? I also think that that boy in the class could become a good fella, and I believe that the country will come out of this. Um, we just have to continue to do the right thing going forward. We we need to um, the, the, the heads need to pick the right team, and and we will come out of this. And just going forward, we just have to look at how we do business more carefully. You there, Kimar?
You're muted.
Me?
Kemar, you're muted.
You can hear me now?
Yes, please.
Yes, you can hear you. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, so just to take in one or two more comments and then I will make my final contribution as well. Um, James came in and said that he believes that our ability to utilize our education is not influenced by the institution per se, but by societal norms and attitudes. You are aware that you don't have to go to university to acquire the skills that we speak of. And he said the minority groups would confirm that. He also said, and he asked who influences the curriculum, the society at large, and the value they place on certain skills. Uh, yeah, but my and all contribution would be that I think that we need to use this down opportunity, this COVID period to relook our priorities, especially as it relates to how we, as I said, deliver our services, right? And if governments, or it's just the governments, will prioritize economic growth and prioritize GDP growth as their overall objective, right? And businesses will always put profit as the end goal, right? So now that we are in a situation where the government will obviously become way more reliant on the private sector for opportunity for growth. I think, as we discussed within the show, the public-private partnerships will play a much larger role in how government delivers services. So things like transportation, things like healthcare, and even education. I don't foresee that these services will be delivered as we know them. As it relates to business opportunity, now I think the government needs to play a greater role in sensitizing the private sector to greater responsibility and to understand the significant risks that are associated right now. And like I said, we are not in silo. That's why we're discussing the Caribbean business environment. In I looked across all of the Caribbean governments, and the fact the issues are the same: high debts, limited resources, small economies, uh, IMF programs, citizenship by investment, the lacking foreign direct investment, scarcity in terms of foreign exchange, and large private sectors. And that was a topic that I wanted to touch on, but it slipped me. Dr. Joseph, because she did mention it, and I think we need more people coming out of the public sector to become entrepreneurs, because we need innovation, we need growth, and governance as in itself does not necessarily provide the level of growth that is needed for the Caribbean region. I think we're really lagging behind as it relates to having an innovative private sector. More than likely, private sectors usually end up relying on governments for subsidies, for tax breaks, and basically to facilitate take the risk from the private sector. They would perform the job, do the skill, but the governments are usually the ones that would fund the risks on these respective projects. But I want to see situations where, like, the IMF, well, the IMF, not per se, but like the Caribbean Development Bank and the European Bank for Reconstruction and the Latin Bank and these places, I would like to see situations where they directly engage the private sector and provide opportunities for funding, provide opportunities for them to create the respective innovation. As Anderson rightly said, we have the ideas. I know quite a few brilliant people who have the ideas, people who actually work in the government, but just because they needed a job, because they got to pay bills and they just tucked themselves into the government and actually killed off a lot of these brilliant ideas that they have because of circumstances. So I definitely want to see improvements in that area. Definitely want to see improvements in terms of cultural practices. Whenever the COVID restrictions are lifted, I would like to see more forums or more institutional forums where financial education is provided, economic understanding is provided. As Ms. Scott Jordan said, understanding the different fundamentals, the different uh, things that governments are focused on, like understanding what's GDP, understanding how you grow GDP, understanding how to link your business to GDP, and putting it into the minds of of people coming up from young. This is what is the end goal, and if you can link some of your fortunes into to the goals of government. And like I said, this is where the government and the private sector and the social partnership. We have to work hand in hand to share their respective goals and to see where businesses can facilitate helping government. Obviously, like I said, they will have to be compensated for doing so, and it will definitely help to solve some of the societal problems that we have, and also help the private sector. People will be able to be fed, the families, and they will make money in the late. And government will also take a ease and take a burden off of the amount of responsibilities that they have to the people. So that's my basic and of contribution. So we're gonna wrap up here. So I'm gonna give you guys a chance to say anything at all that you want to say, any points you want to add, anything at all. The floor is yours.
Yes, Kima, thank you very much. Very good summary. I just want the followers to um, understand that although we did touch on some areas tonight, the business environment is extends beyond that. There are many other aspects for which we would not have discussed tonight. And I want to say that in the Caribbean, we used to focus a lot on how to become competitive, and governments would have looked at trade policies and negotiate different contracts with our foreign bodies to ensure there's a market. In fact, in most recent times, our Eastern Caribbean countries would have seen the evolution of places like Invest Dominica, Invest St. Lucia, where government provided a platform to ensure foreign investors know what products and services we have in our various countries. But the institutional framework for the competitiveness of Caribbean businesses is critical. It's critical. The legal system is a critical aspect for Kima. I would want to recommend this. You should take the legal system as a program on its own. The legal system itself is a critical element which can help push the process forward. The reputation of the business, the various businesses as it relates to the ethics and the standards and the various governance within the businesses, those are very important. But Kima, I want to wrap up by saying that as businesswomen and women, from a finance recommendation, it is best for businesses to consider what are my risks, what are my costs, how much time am I taking to do, how can I make my process more effective so I become least or less dependent on handouts, on government incentives, but I become more productive, finding markets for myself, finding ways and means to ensure that I can lift my business and I can be more sustainable with less support from governments. Because as it stands, our government fiscal space is narrowing significantly, and there's only so much governments can do. I thank you for this opportunity.
Sure, no problem. Anderson, over to you.
Yeah, Kemar, well, I do thank you for bringing me on the program, and I do agree with Dr. Williams, which she just said. And I want to encourage young entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs out there is that in terms of being successful, even if you're looking at to work with government, is to help others, to find good services that can help. And as you help others is when you would then find your true benefits or your true, your true work, like me, I just love my business. I love what I do every day. And every day I go there just to help people, and goodness come, it chase you. You don't have to chase it anymore.
Yeah. Well, as we know, as and for those who are watching who may not know, like I said, Anderson has one of the largest businesses, especially as it relates to the sewage business. You may see many of his trucks on the road, those big red trucks, Jose and Jose. So if you're having any issues or challenges, any like, you can definitely call Anderson. and he'll be ready and willing. He said he's the number one in the number two business. Yeah, so definitely great to have you, Anderson. If there's anyone who would have watched the show who wants to further their conversation with any of the, but I don't think that they'll be opposed to having discussion on ideas and any business and any entrepreneurs who are on who want to have that conversation. This is a perfect space for you to come in. We're changing societal norms and cultures for the betterment of Barbados and the region and possibly the globe, because we're going in a global space. We're going into global space and we're globally competitive. So I just want to encourage everybody to think large scale and think that Barbados is not the only place that you can do business and be successful. If you want to work remotely, that's fine. You could be here or you could be running a business in Miami, in Europe, in Africa. Because I know Africa is going to be it's going to be booming in the future as it relates to development and opportunities. So it encourage persons to look in that direction, and it will also encourage persons to look um, onto Guyana as well, because there's going to be great opportunities in Guyana for um, us here in the region. So with that being said, we have come to the end of our program. And I just want to thank all of the viewers for tuning in. We want to thank Marion Griffith for tuning in, James Paul, David Waldron, Princess Style, Shanice McConney. Thank you for tuning in. And we hope to see you again next week. Well, no, sorry, not next week. You're not going to be here next week. You're going to be here the week after. So we definitely will put out those ads and put out those advertisements so that you can tune in. We promise to have another interesting discussion. And yeah, thank you once more. Thank you guys for agreeing to be on the panel. And we hope at some point again we can further this discussion and also to discuss other topics as they may come up. So again, thank you very much.